Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Supercell Nation weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we are talking about our continued version of the spring 2024 tornado forecast. And I'm sorry about last tornado forecast. I got sick unexpectedly, so this is going to be a continued version, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But first, we're going to hop into the models here before we talk about the official tornado forecast. What I think is going to happen before we get into this. So basically, this is our GFS, our American model here. I think that something is going to happen just just literally in the central to northern plains on the 5th of March. Now, I think this is going to be something we have to watch for. So the next big storm system. First, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're expecting now. In terms of the forecast over the next week, as you can see, there's really a big trough that is really coming in, really racing in from the northern plains here. And what I really wanted to point out here, let's go to the surface edit E here. So as you can see, if you notice this right here, this is our sharp cold front. This is on the 28th of this month of February. Now this is basically going to impact almost all of the U.S., the lower 48. Now, as that is being said, usually when this happens here, we start to get that warm, moist air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico here, along with the potential for a few supercells. Although there's not really much supercells in when there's this sharp of a cold front here. There's really not. So as we head in through the rest of this month, that cold front swings in from the north and really pushes down all that heat. That's what the really thing I find interesting here. If we take a look at our dew points here, our surface dew points, this is what's going to show us our moisture in the atmosphere. So if we take a look at this, really a lot of moisture coming in here, just really coming in. But what I really wanted to show y'all was this. I find this interesting here. I really do. You start to get all this moisture rising over the next week. Yeah, with this being said, guys, take this with a grain of salt here. This is still about a week out. We're still a little far out, but what I find interesting now, the low level jet. This is what helps to control the weather pattern here in the U.S. This is what I find interesting here. So our jet stream, this is what helps it, our wind shear. This is what creates tornadoes. If for those who don't know what wind shear is, really cranking about 50 to 60 knots, like really cranking. As we head into Tuesday of this week, yeah, look at Oklahoma, 55 to 60 knots of roll of the jet. That is interesting. I find that interesting. But what I really want to take a look at is Tuesday into Wednesday. This is where we start to get that low over jet in the Dixie Alley here, in the Dixie Alley region. Now, with this being said as well, the setup is not perfect here, and this is for this week as well. The setup is not perfect. As a matter of fact, if we go on to our convective, our bulk wind shear, the wind shear is not that perfect. Although we could get a few tornadoes, which we'll get to that in a second, the wind shear is not that perfect here. I mean, this is just in the upper levels as well, so it really increases the longevity of your thunderstorms here. Um, Now, taking a look at our RDPS model here, this is what I find interesting here. So, for those who don't know, this is a Canadian model here on the computer models. Um, if we take a look at our surface-based tape, now this is our basically our energy. If this is like putting gasoline into a car, so it helps to fuel severe thunderstorms. So if we take a look at our surface base K, a lot of this here in Texas will be capped, by the way. It will be very capped. With that being said, basically meaning your winds and your overall atmosphere and your energy, your cold and warm air are pushing against each other. They cannot go anywhere. So they're sitting here preventing thunderstorms to limit to any thunderstorms forming. Now, basically, we're having this, what we call a capping inversion, southeast Texas as well. But what I find interesting, once we really head into Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to our EMU cave. It's the most unstable cave here. This is on the lower of the atmosphere, by the way. We really have about 1,500 joules per kilogram in the Dixie Alley. This is what I find interesting here. Really, really interesting. Like, I find this interesting. Our supercell composite. This is, for those of you who do not know what this is the Storm Predictor Center's parameters that they really put together. Um, Basically, meaning your SCP is really up to a 7 here, almost an 8. That's what I find interesting. Well, we're going to take a look at the sounding here. Now, for those who was watching this forecast, you're probably about to see a lot of jibber jabberish on your screen. But what we find interesting here, if we take a look at our first little bitty reading here, this is called our dew point meter reading. 65 degrees. That's way above average what you need for some thunderstorms to form. Now, if we take a look at this here, this is what I find interesting in the Dixie Alley. This is what I could find a few supercellular tornadoes to form here. This hook right here on the photograph basically means you're going to get your rotation in the low levels atmosphere here. And here's the green line right here. Basically, for those who don't know what all this is your moisture, your instability, as well as the red line. The blue line right here is your cold front coming in from the north. What I really want to take a look at as well, your winds as you go from ground level to up in the atmosphere, your winds really change from this direction to this direction. Really, as you go up into the atmosphere here, this is not supposed to happen. What you get with this is the potential hazard type over here, which is a tornado potential. Um, what I really find interesting with this. Now, as before we get into our tornado forecast of this season, I do want to let y'all know that I will be doing live streams pretty much every week of spring. If anything does tend to go supercellular mode, or in linear QLCS mode. But this is what I think on the Tornado 2024 forecast. So by doing this, we are going to take a look at the CPC's precipitation outlook here. Now, with this being said, this basically, yes, this is a precipitation outlook, but what I find interesting here, see, as you all can probably tell, this is a below average precipitation. What I find interesting with this is that we could get a thing called a dry line. A dry line centered right over far west Texas. So here's our dry line that I'm drawing out. And you could get your cold front right ahead of that dry line as well. So with that being said, your dry line is what really sparks up your supercells, your supercellular solar mode. Now, I do expect to this to be pretty much every week of spring, March into May. Um, but really, I see a big tornado alley, as I said in the last previous forecast, a big tornado alley forming right in here, all the way from the back from the Midwest through Central Texas. I do see that happening here. Let me draw that bigger. I really think that this is gonna start going super cellular mode. Now, I do think Tornado Alley is back in business for this year because over the past 3 years we really hadn't had anything it's mainly been in the Dixie Alley that we've had, and actually mainly in the southeast that we've had a lot of that tornado activity. And really, with that being said, far west Texas did get a little bit of tornadoes last year, or actually over the past 3 years, um, but not really anything too significant of any sort. Um, but what I really wanted to say here, tornado forecast for 2024. What is my best predictions for 2024 season forecast? My best predictions are, I think that we could see a big tornado alley forming like all the way through central Texas, through pretty much through southern Great Plains and central Plains mainly. I really think that's possible. Um, to see, here's what I wanted to, last thing I wanted to point out here. We're gonna draw this out here. This is track one, track two. So this is track two here. Basically, I cannot get a grip on this. This is track two and track three. Now, this is what I find interesting here. We're gonna have track one up here the most. Now, track one here could get the most tornadoes of this year. But what I find interesting here, track two could actually impact as well, just as well as track one could. Now, track three, though I did say Central Texas here. Central Texas might be under the gun for a few strong tornadoes, although I really don't find that, I don't find that out of the question here. But I do think track one and track two would be our main area of concern here as we head in through the spring 2024 forecast here. Now, I know there's been a lot of hype out there saying that there's going to be a bunch of tornadoes in Dixie Alley. Well, actually, Dixie Alley is actually going to get less. As you can see, above average precipitation basically means, your wind shear here is not that great because you're having your cold sinking air from the rain here, from the rainfall, when that above average precipitation area hits. Now, with that being said here, I think that there's a lot of hype being put out there for Dixie Alley, and as well as back into the Midwest. But the main thing I'm focused on this spring is this big tornado alley forming here. That includes places like Central Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska. I really wouldn't count on Colorado that much, and the portions of the northern plains, such as Illinois, and portions of Minnesota. Now, with that being said, the last thing I want to point out here, if we hop over back to the models here, or excuse me, the picture here, below average precipitation. This means, like I said, once again, we could get that dry line, those dry line events sparking up in far west Texas. What I really do want to point out, it does not move as eastward as easterly as it does heading in through this spring as it would 3 years ago, because of we're very, El Nino is changing rapidly. It's weakening rapidly. We're coming into a neutral phase here, and then I think after spring into summer, we're going to go into a La Nina phase. Because with that being said, the predictions here from the weather center, or the weather services. It's good to get more than one weather service in, by the way. They're really pointing out that we're rapidly increasing on El Nino chances, precipitation, which, that being said, a lot of below average precipitation, which that can mean extreme droughts. So once again, different things like that. I will have some live streams hopefully coming soon about this. And here, not too much longer, I will have more. I will have starting severe weather coverages pretty much every week this spring. It depends, like I said, once again, if this wants to go super cellular mode this spring, which I'm sure it will at some point, then I will totally go live for this. I will gladly go live for this, actually. Um, but it just depends how much we can see these systems track. If we can see these track across, once again, track 1 and track through track 3, track 1, track 2, and track 3. If we can see both of these, if we can see all of these tracks here go into place, then just maybe we could have a above average tornado season here in 2024. Now, the last thing with that being said, I do want to point out the main thing with this event that I find interesting here. Um, we're not really looking at any what we usually would see 3 years ago, where it's where supercells and squall, supercell squall. I think it's gonna be more supercellular mode this supercellular mode event. Excuse me. This year, I do not think it's gonna be like the past 3 years, because the past 3 years we've been in La Nina phase, and this year we're actually trying. This year I think it's gonna be the big one coming. It's gonna be, as Reed Timmer, storm extreme meteorologist Reed Timmer predicted, above average tornadoes here in Texas. I really do um, find his videos really interesting on uh, for Texas mainly, Texas and Oklahoma and portions of Tornado Alley. I really find that interesting as well. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like button and hit the subscribe button if you're not already. This forecast, and I will see you guys in the next one.